If you recently tried to search for a job, I'm sure you know this feeling where it feels like it is just so hard to get a job. And sometimes it may feel like it's impossible to get a job, especially in this economic environment. And for me personally, I still remembered when I was searching for a job a couple of years back. I remembered sending out my resume many times, right? And it took a while for me to even get one phone call. And I still remembered that I had to search for at least 1 to 2 years to get a job. Luckily for me, I had enough financial, I guess, cushioning, and I had some financial savings, so much so I could actually eventually just retire just for a couple of years. And eventually what happened was, I had a financial institution call me, and it was a really good fit. And I'm just going to share a little bit of my experiences on job searching. But first, I want to talk a little bit about the reality of the economy today, right? So, if any of you guys were to maybe think back, or if any of you guys were maybe born during the 1990s or the early 2000s, if you guys have been maybe growing up into that particular era, I'm sure if you talk to your parents, there's this thing, right, where it's called job security, right? During our parents and also our grandparents' time, I still remembered that my dad would tell me stories of how he had maybe one or two jobs, and a lot of my aunties and my uncles, they only have maybe one job or maybe two jobs, the maximum, right? And the whole thing of it all, the job market back then, right? What happens is that we work in a particular company, right? Or we work in a particular office, right? And what it is the longer we work in that particular office, we give loyalty to that particular office. And in exchange for our loyalty working in that organization, what a company does is they give the employee job security, right? And I still remember, when I was a kid, my dad used to take me to the office, and a lot of offices, right? It felt like it was a family away from home, right? So basically, when I saw all of my dad's colleagues or co-workers, right, they saw me as maybe one of their younger nephews, right, or younger cousins, right, or younger relative, and they would greet me, and it was just so fun, right, back then. So, the work environment felt like another extension of maybe the family, right? But that being said, during the 2010, right? If you were to look, especially during before the pandemic, around 2010 onwards, right? We could see a couple of things. The first thing which I read, and it was becoming more and more, the trend has been growing more and more, is that number one, a lot of fresh grads cannot get a job during that particular point in time. And I still remember reading articles on how they had to maybe join the gig economy, maybe working as a Grab driver, as an Uber, or maybe working as a freelancer, right? So a lot of the jobs that they end up taking does not even match with their degree, right? And again, growing up in the 1990s or the 1980s, right? At that point in time, if someone has a degree, the chances for them to get a job is very high. And in fact, the advice back then was study hard, work hard, and then you save enough money, and then you retire. The whole thing of it all, it actually boils down, if someone has job security, stay in that particular job, you have enough money saved up, you can eventually retire. And that was the retirement plan back then, right? But fast forward to the economy pre the pandemic, right? Pre the pandemic, before the pandemic, this is number one. We could see that a lot of graduates or fresh grads cannot get a job. And the second thing, and the more scarier thing, is that big companies, right? We could see airlines, we could see banks, we could also see telco or telecommunication companies, right? they started laying off staff, right? And it became more and more frequent, right? And the whole thing of it all is, if we grew up in the 1990s, there was no such thing. It was such a big taboo back then, right? But in the maybe 2010s onwards, right, it became more and more common, right? And it was a very scary place, especially for those working in the corporate environment. So honestly, for me, I was also working in an investment bank, and truthfully, I worked my way up to a vice president in an investment bank, right? And I've been working in that place for many years, right? And I was pretty good in what I was doing. I was an analyst. I managed to pick a couple of really good stocks, and the whole thing of it all, even my colleagues and were my friends, and it felt like they were, I guess, family members, right? But that being said, what happened was AI just disrupted everything. And even in the investment banking space, there's this particular, I guess, software, or this particular type of software called algo trading, where they use the algorithm to trade. And what this algorithm does is that it looks through all the newspapers. And the amazing thing about this algorithm, it can read a lot of newspapers from everywhere. It can actually look at all the data, it reads, and also then what they do is they interpret the data, and based on the data interpretation, what happens is that they will place a trade, right? So basically, what this means is that if we work in investment banking, I was an analyst. My main job was to actually read the newspapers and also try to figure out what stocks to buy and sell, right? And again, if the machines can do this, and if the machines can do this 24/7 without any break, without any rest, the machines are much more effective and also cost friendly, right? That's the first thing. Second thing is that also fund managers, right? Instead of the fund managers sitting in front of the monitors to look at the movement of the markets, right? Right now, you have the machines to do that. So not only it took over, not only the jobs of analysts, but also the jobs of the fund managers were, I guess, impacted, right? And like I said, and as some of you may know, during the pandemic, what happened was that a lot of maybe companies were shutting down, and I think this was more of a catalyst, right? Where job loss was more prominent, right? And at that point in time, I still remembered, right? I had the opportunity, right, to maybe switch careers, right? So I just took the opportunity, right? And honestly, these are maybe two or three of the main reasons why I actually decided to maybe take a break from work. Number one, me being as an analyst, right? I think even though it sounds really cool, right? The whole thing of it all, the actual job of an analyst is I have to read the papers every day, and it's like all different types of newspapers, right? All sorts of newspapers I have to read. Second is that I have to hunch over a PC, putting all of my my forecast numbers into the PC and try to figure out the actual value or the target price for certain stocks, right? And the third is that I have to even go out and maybe talk to different companies, right? And every day I felt like my brain was just moving, right? So it's not enough reading, but we have to go on the ground. We have to maybe look at what's happening on the ground. I'll give you an example of this, right? Assuming if I'm an oil and gas analyst, I needed to see the amount of vessels which are moving back and forth. I needed to see the oil reserves in a particular area. So all of this actually, it interlinked and intertwined, right? And I couldn't foresee myself hunch at a PC reading all the time. I knew that I needed to maybe take a change, right? So that's the first thing. Second is that, like I said, machines were maybe slowly taking over certain functions, and I knew that machines were quicker, faster, and they were much cheaper, and they don't even need to have a break. And the third reason why I decided not to be an analyst, right, was basically I just wanted to take the plunge, right? I just wanted to know how it feels being retired, right? And on top of that, I wanted to just focus on passion projects, right? So that was, I guess, my three main reasons. And I think one of the other reason is also with an analyst, we need to face a PC so much. I felt like my eyes were getting weaker and weaker. So with that, I decided to to maybe retire for a couple of years, right? So I think the job reality in today's markets, right, and why it feels like it's so impossible to get a job, right, is I'll tell you quite honestly, right, and this is my observation. I had three groups of friends at that point in time during the pandemic, right. A lot of my friends actually lost their jobs, right. So the first group of my friends were those that actually lost a job, and until today they're still searching for a job, right. And it's already 4 or 5 years already, right. The job market is so weak that they cannot get a job, right. And some of them past a certain age, right, they are unemployable for certain jobs. One of my friends, in fact, he was, I guess, working as a very technical job, doing systems and whatnot, right? And the job market was so weak, he could not, so he decided to actually try to be, I guess, a driver, right? To maybe drive certain high level people, right? That being said, even the driver position, they did not want to offer him. The whole thing of it all, past a certain age, is harder to be employed, right? So that's the first group of friends, which never recovered from job loss. The second group of friends are those that actually managed to get a job, right? But the whole thing of it all was that they got the first job, or they just took the first job which actually came in their way, right? And I noticed that some of them, they actually took, they had maybe their I guess their current jobs maybe are paying much lower, and on top of that, if the job market is not in the favor for employees, so the whole thing of it all, some employers may, I guess, exploit certain things, certain people, right? And they may be a bit toxic with regards to the particular workplace, right? And the third group are those which are unaffected, right? So these are the three groups which I noticed, and these are the three most common groups, right? But that being said, right, despite these three groups, right, and despite the last group maybe not being affected with the overall job market, but the reality of today's economy is that there is also inflation, right? So today's economy, right, there is just two very challenging things that a lot of people within the job market has to face. Number one, there's a lack of jobs. And the second is that there's also the inflation. So not only it's harder for people to move jobs, right? But and also not only it's harder for people to find jobs, but also there's the inflation, which is ever increasing. And every time when the inflation increases, basically what this means is that a lot of us are getting poorer as as our purchasing power drops with the inflation, right? So basically, I guess I just wanted to share this a nugget of wisdom with you, right? On how I managed to maybe get a job, which is really what I really wanted, right? As all of you guys know, lah, basically, right? I love storytelling, right? I just like talking about stuff, right? I just love talking, right? The second thing is that I love finance also, right? But I knew that I did not want to be an analyst, right? So these are the things which I did to help me get a job within the investment banking also, right? Doing, I guess, talking a little bit or sharing my knowledge via the internet, right? So the first thing which I did, and I am advising to you guys, if you guys are searching for a job, is number one, please search the job market. Look at the supply and demand for the particular job market, right? So the whole thing of it all, if there is a low supply and there is a high demand, right, for a certain type of job, if you were to apply for those jobs, there is a very high chance you may get a call for an interview process, right? So the first thing I would highly suggest is maybe look at the overall economy, look at the employment market, try to figure out jobs which has a low low supply of people, but there is a high demand in terms of job openings, right? That's the first thing. The second thing I would suggest is maybe do this, right? Before you even go for the interview, make sure that you have a bit of experience, right? For me, what I did was I knew that I wanted to maybe make content on the internet, right? So what I did initially was I used to create videos, right? A lot of random videos I used to create, right? And to be very honest, my first few videos were really bad. It's really, really bad. So with the whole thing of it all is that but the whole thing of it all is, as you create bad videos, right? Eventually you become less bad, right? And then eventually you become even less bad, right? So, and then after that, if you keep on practicing and you keep on improving, what will happen is that, or if you keep on making videos, right? So your skill level from maybe not, maybe from a 1, you improve to a 2, to a 3, to a 4, to a 5, to eventually a 10 out of 10, right? So the whole thing of it all is that we need to practice, right? So before you even maybe try to apply, maybe try to get some experience, right? And the third most important thing is to never give up, right? Honestly, right now, I've been talking to a lot of my friends, and they've been telling me, it's tough. It's truly tough, right? Especially for those that pass a certain age. Once you pass the age of 35, it's quite a different reality we all have to face, right? And the whole thing of it all is that it's hard, but it's not impossible, right? It's all about being resilient. It's all about trying, and it's all about not giving up, right? And if you have dreams, if you have hope, and if you continue to improve yourself, I'm sure you'll not only survive but also thrive in this economy. So always remember these 3 keys, right? Number 1, I know it's very difficult in this economy today, right? When jobs are not so plentiful, and on top of that, there's inflation. But if you, number 1, look at the overall job market, try to figure out jobs which are in high demand, right? And look for jobs which also has very little candidates, right? So these are the jobs that you may want to consider. Second, before even going for an interview, maybe prepare yourself, right? Try to figure out, try to maybe learn courses on that particular job, right? And try to level up. And the third, final thing is to never give up, right? If we don't give up, we keep on improving, we keep on becoming the better version of ourselves, what will happen is that, things will get better for us. And I just want to end this episode by saying, or telling this particular story, right? So there was once, there was a father, he was reading a newspaper, and there was a son, right? And the father was reading the newspaper, the son was a bit bored, he was agitated, so and he kept bothering the father, right? And then the father was like, he did not know what to do, right? So what he did was, at the corner of the newspaper, there was this picture of a globe, right? He tore the picture of the globe, right? And he tore it into small pieces. And he told the son to actually arrange the globe, right? And what the son did was, he finished it in maybe a couple of minutes. And the father was like impressed, and he was like, wow, how is that even possible? And he asked his son, how did he manage to solve the particular puzzle? The son said behind that globe was a picture of a man, right? So what this story is actually basically trying to say is that if we I guess improve ourselves, or if we improve ourselves, the whole world or the environment around us will also improve, right? So long story short, I know it's a challenging time. It's a very challenging time. But that being said, if we improve ourselves, we take better action, and we keep on, being consistent, never giving up, things will definitely improve if we don't give up, and eventually we take the right actions, right? So with that, I wish you the best of luck in your job search, and know that it is not impossible, it is just difficult to get a job. With that, best of luck.